Any chance that you're like me and during and throughout a project your work table looks like this, just kind of covered with grinders everywhere? Well, that's how I wind up, and of course all the cords get tangled, everything gets messed up. So today I'm going to make a pretty basic grinder stand just to sit by my workstation and see if that helps some of my production flow and keep things a little bit more organized. So let's build this. Okay, let's get into the settings for this. There's two types of metal that I'm using in here, rather two sizes, 1/8 inch and 1/4 inch. There's going to be three different connection areas. One is 1/4 inch bar to 1/4 inch plate. One is 1/8 inch square tubing to 1/8 inch plate. Then the other is 1/4 inch plate to 1/8 inch tubing. When I'm welding two different sizes, two different thickness metals, I prefer to go and set to the thinner metal and add a little extra to the thicker side that can take more heat. So I'm going to start on putting the base feet on, which is going to be 1/4 inch bar to 1/4 inch plate. So we're going to go ahead and set for that. I am running, let's go back to home. So we're going to go ahead and just try auto set and see what I think on this. First off, we are doing mild steel, C25. I'm actually doing 035 wire. And for the plate, we're going to go to 20 volts, 374. We'll see how that does. Personally, I'm going to dial it down just a tiny bit. We're going to give that a go for attaching the plate, and then when we go to the square tubing to the 1/4 inch plate, I'll bring it down on that, which, like I said, it's thinner. So I'm going to set it at 1/8 inch, 18 volts, and I'll soak in a little heavier on the 1/4 inch plate just to make sure it's a nice, good penetrating bead. Components for today's project. The main stand body is going to be a piece of 1.5 inch square tubing, 1/8 wall. These are the legs, or feet if you will, 1/4 inch thick by 1 inch, just flat bar stock. Now what I'm going to do to set these up when it's actually finished is I want to have the ability to level it. My shop floor is pretty level overall, but I hate stuff being wobbly. So I'm going to put some self-leveling feet. I'll put a link to these down below where I ordered them from. They're 1/16 wide steel feet. They're not terribly heavy duty, but this shouldn't really see that much abuse. And to make them adjustable, I'm going to weld a little nut on here. If you take, whenever you want to clean these up, put them on a bolt as many as you want. Tighten down each end so it's clamped in place and run it under a good wire wheel. On an angle grinder or bench grinder if it's secured. Of course, be safe doing that. It'll take off all the plating on here, so it makes it easier to weld, a lot less contamination. But the plan is weld on a nut, and then of course the foot from underneath will thread up, and there you have adjustable. This is going to be the center plate. You're going to see all four legs mounted onto this on the underside. I'll flip it over, and the tubing will mount to that. And then this is the actual angle grinder holder. Now, I cheated a bit, if you want to say that. I acquired it. This is a piece off of the table on the other side of the room. It came with it when I bought it. It was welded underneath. It actually just had two little tabs under here that were welding it to the bottom of the table, and it was a pretty poor design. It broke away. So of course I don't want to scrap it. I don't want to get rid of it. It's usable. So if you want to make one yourself, this is simple 1/8 inch stock. It is 3.5 inches wide, and there are 4 holes cut that are 2.25 inches wide. So make a 2.25 inch diameter hole. To follow out the edge, you could do it with a grinder. You could do it with a torch. This looks like it was probably cut on a plasma table because they're pretty evenly spaced, and the way the edges bevel, I think they probably used a plasma table on it. Overall, like I said, acquired it and didn't make this myself, but it would be easy enough to fabricate. And of course, you notice all mill scale is off of here. Be sure to really clean your metal. You'll definitely get a lot better product if you prep your metal the right way. The next step is to go ahead and weld on the nuts for the leveling feet. Just put one nut on, this will kind of help hold it in place. Have the ability to just set it right there. One weld on either side. And we're going to do that times 4. I want to make sure that all of my pieces of 1-inch flat bar are nice and flat to the main 4x4 base. So what I'm doing is I have them all set in place to where it's going to end up, but I want to make sure they're all tacked down. With the spacing of my holes on the fixture table, I can't get clamps exactly where I want. So I'm going to weld these two, rather tack these two in place, let them cool for a second, make sure they're set. I'll readjust the clamps, put clamps on the other two, get them clamped down nice and tight, tack them in place, and everything should be flat and flush. So after that, I hit the bottom here with the flap disc just to knock off any extra weld mess and just double check. It sits nice and flat as it is. This is a flat table. So it should be okay even without the leveling feet, but just because if I can find an uneven spot in the shop, I want to go ahead and add those in as an extra little feature. Let it cool for a second, and then I'm going to put in the welds on the actual legs to hold those in place. So next up, time to do a little math and figure out how to set the tube so that it's perfectly centered on the square plate. You've got a 4-inch square plate and an 1.5-inch tube. A couple of different ways to do it. Across the plate, mark center at 2 inches either way. Once you have a dot, half of 1.5-inch tubing is 3/4, so you could come over 3/4 of an inch either way there, or 4 inches across, 1.5-inch tube. Leaves 2.5 inches. Half of that is 1.25 inches, so it's going to be 1.25 inches from all 4 sides. So just marking 1.25 inches from all 4 sides. Taking that, setting it on the marks, and that's going to be our spot. So that's going to be our target to mark. One nice thing on this fixture table, it's got the side skirts on it that also have the fixturing holes, so I can put clamps in from the side. This will make it easy to clamp a base to the main center shaft on it. If you were to try to put this flat on the table and then put the shaft straight up, it's pretty awkward being about 3 feet tall. It'd be really hard to keep it centered. This way, all I have to do is get the edge set on the edge of the table, the outer edge, bring up this direction, get ready to fixture this in place, take a couple of squares to make sure we're good here. I also like using this little 3-2-1 cube. It's a perfectly machined cube. Not sure exactly what the material is, if it's low carbon steel or a little bit stronger, but it is exactly 1 inch thick, 2 inches wide, and 3 inches long. So if you ever need a dimension that's exactly that, plus the fact it's about perfectly square, it's a handy little tool just to square things up. I believe I got these off Amazon. I'll put a link in the description to where I got them. And we are square. We're going to tack this in place, flip it, make sure everything's square, get 4 good tacks on it before we run any beads, because it's going to really pull once we do it. Now that I've got that done, it gives me the opportunity to check final square on here, because even though it's tacked, I still have the ability to make some final adjustments on it. But it looks pretty good overall. It's about as square as you're going to get. One final check before the last tack. Good. So to make absolutely sure what my clearance is going to be here on the center, I'm putting a couple of grinders in, making a couple of marks here where they land. I don't think I have anything really bigger than that as far as the outer safety guard sits. So let's try. This one might be a little bigger. Let's see. Lands about the same spot. So if we stick within that, I could even grind off there a little bit if I need to, but if we stick within that spot, then the grinders will fit. At least if I have any clearance issues here, bigger ones I can put on the outside, but that gives me again the spot to hold 4 grinders. Let's get that welded up. Now we just need to put in the adjustable feet on here. And they thread in just fine. Put in 4 of those and we'll get it on the ground and get it leveled up. So there she sits, all nice and level. The project behind it, that firewood rack, is kind of what prompted me to do this, because I got tired of tripping over all my grinders that were in the way. So let's see how this works. Drop a couple grinders in here. Yep, that's going to be plenty handy to keep beside my work table and keep that off my table during the middle of a project. Well, that's it. That's my project for today. Didn't take more than about an hour or 2 to complete. Should be pretty handy. If you're new to the channel, I'd love it if you would subscribe and hit the bell so I can notify you when I post new content. Outside of that, you guys have a great day and thanks for watching.